Other M, issue 30. Now for the final issue of Other M. Since the later issues had their data on them lost, and Flynn never bothered to actually finish the comic thanks to his classic problem with dragging things out, and sadly even the fans didn't finish the comic. Rotor is in bed, and then he opens his eyes underwater, and Rotor naturally wonders how Amy's talking under the water as she telepathically tells him to be brave. Takal tells him don't go to him, and to beware the monster. His dream ends with him seeing a roaring mouth below an eyeball, probably Snavely's computer. Since he's going to completely ignore the warning of this dream was entirely a waste of comic space. Snavely asks him for his assistance from an intercom, I guess, and I suppose freedom fighters here know military time by heart since he knows it's early in the morning. He thinks about how 10 years ago his father was the captain of the Royal Navy and life was good in Mobile Metropolis. When the Guardian's forces came, his dad meant to get the whole family on the transport and go back to the front line, but instead got trapped on it with them, which meant that Rotor and his brother got lucky for having their family in a dark time. How'd he get trapped? I guess we'll never know. But when Mercia and the other surrounding lands were already captured, they had no choice but to land on the floating island, and he can still remember the cold nights where they couldn't find a building in Cavern Canis to sleep. He thinks about how General Stryker tried to stupidly confront the Guardian launch base zone. The official number of casualties among the Legion was 2, and it caused a riot in Kiddopolis. He remembers that the Chaotix joined the hunt, and he got separated from his folks, who got cornered by Fang. Rotor lampshades that Snively's lucky he's helping at all, and he tells him to test out a sensory pad. Snively puts him in a room, filling up with painful liquid, and explains they heard about Chaos, and says that the Guardian and his sub-bosses gathered up all of the emeralds, so when Snively found Chaos, he decided to strengthen it by offering it DNA. He started with krill and then worked his appetite up to fish. He says that Rotor is proving his plans for Albion and his friends will go well. He hears Amy's telepathy in his head, thanks all of his friends and his thoughts for everything, and Amy says sadly that she heard his prayers and sent them to his friends. She could teleport people! Why the fuck didn't she just teleport him out of there? What, is she too far away? She's far away, but she can still send him telepathic messages just fine. She knew what was going on, didn't she? She's just psychic. She can teleport to whoever she wants. She should just be able to teleport to him, and then teleport him away. The story ends with the heroes going off to Albion instead of Mercia first, like they should have. It's hilarious. The comic has padding, and then it ends before the padding could even begin. Just like the actual comic did. This issue is by Ian Flynn, and was about Snively suddenly feeding Rotor to Chaos to strengthen it out of nowhere. And annoyingly enough, instead of Amy teleporting him away, or even so much as telepathically warning his friends about what was going on so they could save him, she was completely and utterly useless despite knowing what was happening to him. Well, that's enraging. What an end to the issue. As for the comic as a whole, it's good, though it gets much better after it stops having violence like that. It's certainly engaging and interesting since I kept reviewing its issues several in a row, even when my hands got sore. Having it take place in another dimension entirely, with the Prime Sonic as the audience surrogate to learn about it for us, was a brilliant idea that left Flynn with a lot of wiggle room for creativity with the world. A world where Knuckles was in Eggman's place, brainwashing the Chaotix after apparently he decided to call himself the Guardian, and revitalization was the concept that was just in its infancy, as Kindabor was working for Knuckles, sabotaging it to keep him at bay. Kindabor's a good Eggman who even made some of the hero cyborgs to help them. Fiona was one of the best parts of the comic, getting to actually see her as a freedom fighter more often, and while the Prime Fiona never had cyborg hands, it goes to show you the missed opportunity with her character, because if Rotor hadn't had that obsession with not using guns or weapons of any kind, Fiona could have used ray guns to shoot lasers and be just as useful in the same way as other M Fiona. Also, Fiona's relationship starting with Sonic was much more natural, as she felt for him for his bravery and showed compassion, crying and saving his life when he was hurt. And like she also had great chemistry with him teasing him and stuff. Another big thing about the comic is that the heroes are darker. They're extremists, even called terrorists, and that's made clear pretty quickly as all of them are harsher. Even Bunny likes the sound of executing Mighty despite being a healer. And Bean has no problem with making them attack civilian buildings in a pathetic attempt to get the Guardian to step down. Antoine wants Sonic dead at first, calling him worthless. Rotor also calls him that as well, and is much harsher from his desire for revenge for his family, which he never actually got because Knuckles randomly killed Fang instead of him. So that's a plot thread that was never resolved, as well as every other recent one since the comic ended. The point is, this comic's main problem is that it's too violent, and darker in general make it more depressing. The heroes are harsh extremists who care more about beating the Guardian than actual morality in general. And the biggest problem of all is that the comic doesn't understand the concept of a discretion shot. Violence is fine, if unnecessary, and I can handle characters being killed off, even if that's totally unnecessary. Like, Leonda literally got a bomb inside her blow up in the actual comic, and it was fine because we never saw it. But come on, it gets really ridiculous at times, and I don't know why the artist thought we wanted to see any of that. Also, the comic completely wastes the intriguing concept of an evil Tails with elemental powers, because he's just generically evil wanting to destroy the world for no reason. Never once relents on this and realizes the heroes are good guys or has sympathetic moments where he's like a person. And those cool powers? Espio has them too, by the way. So whatever. It would have been much better if Tails was the one who redeemed himself instead of Mighty. Then the heroes could take advantage of those powers and we'd have Sonic showing compassion and forgiveness to a new little brother. Instead, they try to make him as evil as possible for being dark and edgy, even having him threaten to skin Sonic to death at one point. Why? But being dark in tone doesn't make it a bad comic. It was engaging, fascinating, and there were great concepts like tons of cyborg freedom fighters, and Fiona and Sonic's relationship being something I actually felt invested in, and the Prime Sonic being an outsider, which is a forever dangling plot thread as we'll never see all of his friends realize who he is and talk about it. Although maybe that would have just led to a liar reveal cliche, making all of his friends stop trusting him despite everything he's done for him. But he could have at least told Fiona about it. There are 3 other issues that Flynn wrote for fan comics, but their plots sound pretty generic, like Sonic just fights Eggman. Maybe later down the line.